Hey, everybody. It's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy these live streams, like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free newsletter at substack.com/@Jeremy. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author page. So a couple of announcements before we get started. Number one, no live stream next week. I am going to be exhibiting at WonderCon in Anaheim. I do not know my Artist Alley table off the top of my head, but I'll be on Artist Alley, and I will try to post the actual booth number on the socials before the event. But it's pretty much the only show that I do every year now, and still one of my favorites, and hopefully I'll see some of you guys there for that. Number two, at the end of this live stream, we're going to do, after this live stream ends, I'm going to take a short break, and then I'm going to do a Patreon live stream, and it's just going to be doing another writing sprint session, because I've actually fallen behind. I haven't done any writing this week at all, which is kind of a shame, because I really had been in a pretty good rhythm of writing daily, just sitting down, hitting the tape, hitting the keyboard and logging that, getting the time in. So I've fallen out of that, and I don't want to fall too far out of that. So I figure getting a writing sprint in and making it so if anyone else wants to any of the other patrons want to log in and join me, you guys can do a little productivity. We can kind of, get on it together. So I see Dylan in the chat already. Hi, Dylan. How you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping in. All right. So where are we at? We are still on page 1 of my Pandora's Box comic. And yeah, at this point, it really is just refining and finishing this page. Although I realized something I should have done before we started was looking up reference for the gears and cogs, because right here in this front, I'm actually going to draw the cogs on a separate layer, but Prometheus is going to have his hands with a bunch of cogs and gears sort of floating in front of him. And I need to pull up some reference for that. Not like I really, really need it, but it just would be useful to have something to look at whenever I'm drawing something that isn't a human form or something that I have sort of internally memorized. I find it easier to just pull up some reference while I do it. See, Herman's in the chat. Good to see you, Herman. Says, what's good, G and peeps? Hope all is well. Yep, it's all good. Making some progress here. Let me zoom back out so you guys can see this real quick while I'm digging up some reference. Let's see. But anyway, and this is also flipped. Let me flip this back the other way. It used to be that I would draw all of it forward and then I would flip it and make all of my corrections. But now that I'm working digitally, I'm getting into the habit of flipping back and forth as I go. And I haven't really come to a conclusion of how I feel about that yet. Because one of the nice things about when I was drawing it all one way and then flipping it is that I was just focused on the story and the energy. And then in the flipped version, I was just focusing on fixing anatomy and structure. And now I'm kind of doing both at the same time. I haven't really made up my mind how I feel about it yet. But anyway, this is basically my rough layouts. And then, to be honest, it's really going to be like a little bit of cleanup, but I may just go from the roughs straight to the actual digital inks from this. So let's see. Gears and cogs. That's what I'm looking at. Gears and cogs. Just go to images here. All right, so I've got a little bit of reference that I can work on. Let's see here. Oh, Dylan says he's doing well. He says, I have an early birthday party today. Tomorrow's my birthday. Happy birthday. I'm glad to hear that. I hope you have a joyous celebration. Now, this is weird. All of a sudden, all right, for a minute, the screen became completely unresponsive. All right, here we go. And just to make it easier to differentiate between, one thing I'm going to do is drop the opacity a little bit so I can see my understructure, my rough sketch that's below that, which is already on a low opacity. But now I can go up here and I can draw these gears in with hopefully a little bit more control and vision, just being able to see what I'm doing a little bit better. All right, and I should probably, I was going to say, honestly, when it comes to something like this, I prefer to draw at kind of an angle, because in real life, when I'm drawing on paper, I will just rotate the paper and draw from whatever angle I like. But I realized in order to make sure that I'm aligning these properly, I probably need to distort, like not distort this, but keep it on a proper like horizontal axis so I can be aware of where and how these are being lined up. Let's see here. So Herman says, is that a vector paint program? He said, I see once you drew the circle, it was smoothing out as if it was drawn in Flash or Animate. No, I'm drawing in Procreate. Procreate has a feature where if you draw a line, if you hold onto the screen, it will now straighten that line. If you move it up and down, you can now make it, it'll just, wherever you release it, that's where it'll be. And if you want it to snap, you just put your finger on the screen and then it will snap in 15-degree increments. Now, where that comes in handy with drawing things like arcs and curves, hang on. Well, I don't want to erase the whole thing. I just want to get rid of that. Now, you can draw an arc, and if you hold, it'll straighten the arc. You can rotate the arc, you can scale it, you can reverse it. The other thing you can do is if you let go and you quickly go to the top of the screen and hit edit, it will give you points similar to vector points. So it'll give you an end point and a starting point, and you can now distort and change the shape of it. Well, really, it's giving you it's giving you the points of an ellipse. And this will make more sense if I actually get rid of this and draw an ellipse. So if I draw an ellipse in Procreate and then hold, when you release, you go up and press the edit button. Now, when you have the edit button, the options you have are you can grab either of these 4 points to manipulate and distort it that way. You can hold your finger to the screen, and then it'll allow you to, it should, there is one setting where it'll let you scale it up proportionally. I think it's because I already hit edit, because otherwise you can just, here, let me undo that. It says edit and then editing, because there is a setting, And it's a little bit tricky, but when you first draw it, it will give you the option of edit ellipse. Oh, that's interesting. This is too much of an ellipse already, and it already knows that you want an ellipse, because if you draw something that's kind of round and then hold it, it'll ask you, do you want it to be an ellipse or do you want it to be a circle? So you can have it ellipse and it'll let you edit it as ellipse. If you tell it to edit as a circle, then it'll intentionally try to keep it rounder, and then you can sort of scale it up and down, make adjustments as needed. So no, I'm not making vector modifications. This is just a nice feature that Procreate has for lines, for arcs, and for ellipses, where it'll autocorrect. Just makes it a little bit easier to draw these things. Let's see here. James is in the chat. He says, this is my first stream. I'm watching using my new router. Well, I hope you're getting fast streaming speeds, and that everything's coming in loud and clear for you. All right. Anyway, all of that to say that I am using the correcting feature. And the thing I actually find is once you draw one ellipse and you get it sort of where you want it position-wise, you can then go in and draw a second one. And this is something that I find people don't do enough, which is, instead of trying to draw really, really fast, just to take your time, draw a slow line. And yeah, it's plenty wobbly. I don't have the smoothing on, but I don't really need to have the smoothing on, because I'm going to get up here and stop. It'll smooth automatically. I'll tell it to edit, and I can adjust this to be like almost exactly what I want it to be. Let's see here. Herman says, so what pencil size are you drawing with, or is it pressure sensitive? Because you look rough. And he says, just thinking about your details, like, will you draw with a 1 pixel and then step it up to a bigger, like a 3 pixel? And there is a follow-up question about the circles, but first off, so over here on the side, I've got my Procreate. People don't always use this, but there's a little slider on the left and right. It actually, you can, when you pick a size, you can hit a preset. So when you have whatever this size is, if I go down here, that's so weird. I don't know why it's not showing me the actual number. Oh, it's because it's still in editing mode. That's why. I got to click out of editing that ellipse. But anyway. Okay, so when you slide up here, it tells you what the size is, and it doesn't give you pixel numbers. It just gives you a percent. So I don't even know what 100% is. So this is a little bit weird from the way that we normally think of brushes in pixel size when you're drawing in Photoshop. But regardless, what I do is I just pick, like, I pick the sizes that I use the most, and you can add like a plus sign, and it'll let you add, just basically bookmarking sizes of brushes. Now, this is a pressure sensitive brush, but it's not, well, this is kind of I'm using sort of the larger setting of it right now, but the brush is pressure sensitive. And usually what I'll do is, when I'm drawing rough, I'll try to draw a size maybe 1 above my particularly detailed brush. And I'll try to kind of make this a line that's kind of chunky, but also I can get thin lines if I just go really light, because I actually don't want to use a whole lot of pressure. Now, I only use my smaller brush settings when I'm doing details inside of the figure. I actually like to use a thicker line on the outside, on the silhouette of my figures, and then even within that silhouette, to try and make the underside a little bit thicker. Obviously, I'm exaggerating here. I'm not going to make it this thick, but My point being is that I kind of make the silhouette of the whole figure thicker, and then I'll intentionally switch to a thinner brush for doing the details inside, because it kind of makes the figure not fight makes the details not fight the overall shape of the figure. It just helps the overall silhouette pop and stand out a little bit more. Now, in terms of the question of being able to cut and paste circles, this is one of those things where it's challenging because I don't have a camera over my tablet so you guys can see what my hand is doing. But if you draw a silhouette like this, you can. What I'm doing now is I will go over to the edit button. Now you can't see this, but what I'm doing is I am actually moving my stylus off to the side. But as long as I have this in edit mode, I can move this around the screen wherever I want. Now, whether I can cut and paste this to a different layer, that I don't necessarily think you can do that unless I just select it with the wand. But let's see what happens if I go to the selection tool. Yeah, I have to select it in order to do it, but I can just select it, and then I can copy paste. And now there's two of them. Or I can just cut paste and then it's on a new layer. But to cut paste, it doesn't show up in the main menu below. There's a 3-fingered swipe to bring down another menu, and that one you can cut paste from there. So these are all just little Procreate tips. If you don't use Procreate, then don't worry about it. But if you are using Procreate, there's little tips and tricks. I mean, Procreate has a video on where all the commands in their interface are. Like, I know Amar does not particularly care for Procreate. He says he feels like it's a toy, and just the iPad in general. It's personal choice. I feel like it has all of the tools that I really want, and that I like the simplistic interface. A lot of the bells and whistles that you have in Photoshop or Clip Studio Paint. I shouldn't say Clip Studio Paint because I have not used it enough to really accurately assess its abilities. I just know that the desktop version I didn't really care for that much. Let me see here. Let me scroll back up. I might have missed a few comments in the chat. But yeah, let's see here. Kingslow Fitness says bigger lines, draw it as if it's like a car, drive slow. Let's see here. Kingslow Fitness says there's 4 points of it from an Illustrator or Affinity Vector. Yeah, it's not actual vector. It's still bitmapped. If you scroll in, you can see the anti-aliasing. So it is bitmap, but it just does an autocorrect for the line. So it'll smooth it out once, but once you release that, it doesn't have points that come back again to edit it. So it's not something that you can manipulate the way that you can in Affinity or Photoshop. But it does give you the ability to manipulate it from when you first draw it. And to some extent, I think that this is definitely a place where Clip Studio Paint would have it be. Because I think with Clip Studio Paint, when you draw ellipses, I believe that they remain editable. So I'm not 100% sure on that. But anyway, I am using this to draw gears and cogs. I had some reference I was looking up. I got to pull up while I'm working here. So the idea of this particular scene that I'm drawing is simply that Prometheus is a god of science and invention, and I'm visually trying to show. I think I may have discussed this when I was doing the roughs, and I was kind of blocking out how I wanted this this page to look, and I had drawn sort of a Doctor Strange version of this panel where he was kind of floating with all these cogs spinning around him. And it was just me not wanting to repeat, or at first I felt like the shot that I'm drawing now was a little too stock. It was a little too much of what you would expect from, oh, looking at a god, a bunch of gears and cogs. And there was something about it that just didn't play for me. But what changed my mind was the fact that I make little, as opposed to thumbnail drawings, the little pictures that go with your YouTube video when you post or repost it, those are also called thumbnails. And when I made the thumbnail for the video when I was working on the roughs of these, this image, the image of Prometheus with all of the gears and cogs in front of him, that's the one that stuck out to me. And I thought, well, if it's good enough for the thumbnail for my video, then it's good enough for a panel inside of the comic. So sometimes you third guess yourself, because I drew this originally, then I second guessed it, and then I came back and said, nah, that first one was the right one. Let's see here. Herman says, yes, it seems like Procreate is great for inking. Like Flash, it was great for inking, more intuitive than whack Illustrator. I love Illustrator. It's my primary tool, my primary weapon for my day job, but it's a design program. And I really love it for graphic design, laying stuff out. I would not want to do a drawing in it, even though it is definitely a drawing program that has drawing tools. I see it less than I think of that Illustrator is whack, because I love Illustrator. It's that, the right tool for the right job. When it comes to making and inking and drawing comics, I really don't think Illustrator is well suited for that. When it comes to doing product design and maps and infographics, and even like stuff like book illustrations or technical illustrations, those are places where it really excels, or at least where it feels more organic. I mean, that said, I would say that there's some stuff like children's book illustrators where you're doing a lot more of like using stylized brushes and using really simple shapes and filling them with interesting patterns and textures. There's forms of illustration that I think Illustrator, oddly enough, really does excel at, as opposed to, most of us thinking Photoshop feels more like traditional drawing, and that tends to be what a lot of us default to. And again, here's the thing. You guys hear me say all the time that just because I like something doesn't mean that's the way I think it should be, has to be. I have my general opinion of most tools is that if I don't like a tool, I don't think it's a bad tool. I think it's just not right for me. And that's how I feel about digital tools. It's how I feel about books and movies. It's how I feel about people. There's not a lot of things that I outright just say, this sucks, this is crappy, this thing should go to hell. if it doesn't work for me, then I'm like, I'm not the right audience for it. I'm not the person that this thing was built for. And sometimes there's tools that I will come to later in life and I was like, oh, I just wasn't approaching it the right way, or it is not, I didn't need what it does at that time. All of this to say that I have a very Pollyanna-ish, very forgiving attitude towards most things. And that attitude comes from the fact that that's kind of the world I want to live in. I want to live in a world where everybody can forgive everything and just be like, yeah, that wasn't right. Yeah, let's try to do better, you know. Because if I can spread a little bit of that in other people's lives, then maybe other people will spread that further. We live in too much of a world of absolutes, of just this is good and this is bad, instead of having a little bit more understanding for things that might not fit into our worldview. Let's see here. Kingsville Fitness says, I am thinking to rock GIMP, similar to Photoshop as well, with a slight learning curve, to go over comparison for editing, thumbnailing. Here's the thing. GIMP, Photoshop, Procreate, Krita, Clip Studio Paint, Universal Painter, PaintStorm. All these programs do the same shit. And I have to tell you, no one cares which tool you're using. Nobody cares. Use whatever works for you. Use whatever works best and allows you to get the job done. And I don't say that like I don't say that like I don't want to hear it. I'm saying the tool you're using is not important. What's important are the skills that you have with that tool. I mean, by all means, continue to share what you're using with me and with the rest of the community, because I may discover a tool that I've never heard of before and say, oh, wow, this does something cool. But in my experience, all these programs are relatively the same. Some have subscriptions, some don't. Some have one-time fees, some are open source and completely free. You're going to find what works for you, and you should try a bunch of stuff until you find out what works for you. Procreate may not always be my art tool of choice. There may be a day where I get to where I'm like, Procreate ain't working for me anymore. Or I just find something else and I'm like, oh, this is way better. That may very well happen. But in the long run, the more important thing is developing good draftsmanship skills, understanding simple volumes, learning how to make controlled marks with the tool so that what you actually imagine in your head gets out on the page. Developing control with whatever tool you're using, I think, is a lot more important than the tool, whatever that particular tool is. I bring that up because I believe that it is also possible to fall into the trap, much like I spend way too much time probably watching a lot of tutorials and videos and trying to say, oh, well, if I watch this video or I learn this technique, then I'll be a great illustrator. I collect a ton of art books that I don't actually use. Like my shelves are filthy with educational art books. And I keep wondering why I'm not as good as I want to be. And it's because I'm spending time collecting books instead of just doing the work. So you can spend forever chasing different art tools. In the end, it's about what you do with them. All right, let's see here. Herman says, I got an Ubuntu Linux on my flash drive from my desktop. He said, and Linux takes time to get used to. I'm still using my Windows 10 more than my Windows 11. I just have the security soup up just to protect it. And since Windows 10 dropped. It's here. Herman says thumbnails to see the image at a distance. Been drawing like that on a touchscreen laptop, old school. Linux is best for it and for concentration. Getting caught up here on the chat. Herman says, also, I have GIMP also, just in case Windows 10 decides not to work anymore. I have GIMP and Affinity on my Windows 11 and 10. And Kingslow Fitness says, vector-based art equals Illustrator. Oh yeah, Herman says, hey, can you zoom in a little bit more to help your help your circle and ellipse making? This is boo Illustrator. Let me know if this is close enough. I don't have the reference that I'm working from in the screen, but also the other thing is I kind of like drawing. First off, the only reason why I'm even zoomed in this close is because I'm drawing circles and ellipses. What I tend to do is I have found that if I draw, like when I'm drawing thumbnails, I actually like to draw really small. So I'll draw full screen like this. If I'm trying to do detail work or digital inking, then if I try to zoom in, because the tablet I'm working on is almost 11 inches wide, which means that this is just a little bit smaller than working on 11 by 17 Bristol. Like if I have the width going all the way across the screen, then it's just a little bit smaller than working on a standard comic book board. So generally speaking, this is usually the closest that I'll zoom in. But I did have to zoom in a little bit closer because of the trying to fit details into here. Part of the reason for that is that, as you know, working digitally, a lot of artists end up putting in too much detail. You're putting in details that you don't need, that the reader isn't going to see. And by forcing myself to draw from a little bit farther out, yeah, you might look at this and say, oh, you could put so much more detail in there. Why don't you zoom in closer? I don't want to put more detail in there. I'm intentionally trying to restrict or constrict. I'm trying to constrict how much detail I put in by intentionally working zoomed out a little bit more. So that's the solution that I've come up with for dealing with drawing way too much detail that ends up not even showing up in the page. This is a place where I should probably switch to a smaller brush as well. I realize now as I'm doing this, let me undo some of these. Now that I'm getting into these the gears, the cogs, that's a place where I should use a smaller brush. You know, and there are definitely artists who make really cool pattern brushes so that the stuff that I'm doing now, they can just do it in a swipe. Like they'll have a cog brush or a chainmail brush, and they can just go zip, and with one stroke, they've created the teeth of all the gears. I have never gotten that deep into that level of custom brush creation. And it probably would be a big time saver if I did. So it is a blind spot in my creative process that I'm aware of. You know, another thing is, I don't know why I'm getting too caught up in these details, because like I said, I'm gonna have to redraw this. You know, for these gears, I can probably just turn it to black and it'd be fine. I realize that I'm still in a layout, like a rough pencil phase. I'm starting to draw these like these are finishes. I think maybe what I'll do is I'll just put a couple more, you know, and I have these gears all lined up. Maybe I'll have a couple that are floating a little bit off to the side. Like I've got one maybe up here. Then maybe one over here. So intentionally putting some gears in there that are not on this perfect axis. Let's see here. You guys are going buck wild with the tech conversations in there on the different tools and devices you guys are using. I'm curious if anybody's interested in messing with that Wacom Move Ink, because I have to tell you that when the time comes for me to get a new tablet, from everything I've seen, Adam Duff, Lucid Pixel, did a really good review of it, and it looks like the only problem is that it doesn't. I believe it's an Android device, so I don't believe it has Procreate on it, but it looks real tempting. It's looks a lot more affordable, like almost half the price of an iPad, and really high quality. So, and if I keep saying it's not the tools, it's the user, then maybe I need to be open to the possibility of using a new device. So, knock on wood, because the workflow I have right now feels like it's working for me. I don't, hopefully this device will keep working for a good long while. But it is something that I was thinking about. I'm curious if any of you guys have messed with one of those. All right, I think that this is good enough for the gears, because like I said, I have to decide whether I'm going to re-ink this or whether all I'm going to do is just convert the line art to black and then just refine it and add details. If I go to convert it to black, all I'll do is just go to adjustments, and then from hue saturation, just turn the brightness all the way down, and boom, it's inked. Cancel that though. Let's see here. Herman says, forgiving everyone will be hard, but a lot of action showing will make things change for the better. I guess lead by example. Yeah, I mean, that was something that my folks taught me when I was a kid, which is just to try and behave the way you want the rest, like not to respond to the world the way it is, respond to the world the way you want the world to be. So yeah, it's not a perfect world, and I'm no saint, but I try to. We don't live in a utopia, but I try to behave as if this is how I would want people to treat each other if we did live in a utopia. See here. James says, I see what you're saying. If you have a friend who feels like they're a crappy friend because they don't always respond when you reach out to them. So that's something I've been thinking about lately. I don't think she's a bad person. I feel heard when I talk to her. Well, I will tell you this. I am guilty of not reaching out to friends as often as I should. And, I go through phases where I'm like, all right, I really need to be in touch and call and reach out. Sometimes it's worth it to just keep trying. And, like a lot of times what I realized is because I have this whole thing with doing art, and art is such an internal act, that my friends would just, they'd ask me to go hang out, go do stuff. And I'd always be like, I can't, I got this going on, I got that going on. What I started doing was telling them if I'm really busy, like first off, I started intentionally making time to spend time with friends as opposed to just doing art all the time. But when I couldn't do that, what I started doing was I would tell those same friends, I'd say, hey, don't stop asking. I would tell them, I can't do this right now, but tell me the next time you're doing it. Like I made it a point of like, one, actually showing up for my friends more often. instead of just staying in my studio all the time. And two, when I could not do it, I would tell them, I do want to be a part of your life. I do want to hang out. I can't make this thing right now. Please invite me to the next one. And just making the act of making it a conscious choice to make sure that they know that you value them even when you're not showing up, that has made the difference. And that's actually helped me maintain some friendships that honestly would have fallen apart because of my own reclusiveness if I didn't take the time to tell them that I valued them and wanted to spend time with them even though I wasn't doing it. So I don't know. Everybody's got a complicated relationship. I mean, what's really hard is when you're an artist and you are not an introvert. When you're an artist, but you really thrive on connection and human energy, you're always feel like you're getting pulled out of you want to get pulled out of your studio. And it's really, really hard to find the time to sit down and get work done. It's hard. As we always say here, life be lifing. All right. King's Little Fitness mentioned the battery on his iPad's dead. Sorry to hear that. And let's see here. He said his feng shui has been off. Let's see here. Oh, Herman said, I was good. I was trying to help you, G. It says, in terms of drawing ellipses, he says, it was close enough. Sometimes it seems like you were struggling some. No, again, this, believe it or not, the thing is, this is still, I consider this my rough layouts. So what I do is I go from thumbnails to rough layouts, and then I do digital inks. And I was trying to get just enough detail on this that it would work for me to go transition to digital inks without really sitting there and focusing on doing some detailed drawing on that. Although I'm getting ready to shift into inking these things. And he does say, which is kind of me to say, said, yo, circles and squares always look good when you apply with other organic shapes. It looks nice so far. Said, thank you. And he also mentioned that Sam Keith passed away. Yeah, rest in peace, Sam Keith. He said he was 63 years, and he said it's been rough, man. My supervisor mom passed. I'm getting contacted to a policy update for me. My mom, grown man stuff, lifting. Yeah, life. I am sorry to hear that you're going through all that. Sorry to hear that Sam Keith passed away. I love those Max comics. I hadn't read a lot of the stuff he'd done since those early Image years, but you know what I mean? I was reading his Sandman stuff. Yeah. It's way too young, way too young. Let's see here. Dylan says the Moving 14 is on my wish list. And King's Little Fitness says Krita may be the overall art flow for animation. I want to make sure of that on my account. He says practice. Herman says, some people, hey, I'm not that guy, but some people need to be chin checked. That's going back to the forgiveness. Some people need to be chin checked. People need to respect each other. He said, I think it's like broken homes, man. I don't know. Let's see here. I see my boy Gregor Kumi in the chat. Gregor, how you doing? Good to see you, man. Herman says, I stay in hermit mode. I'm so much of an introvert. It's not good. I'm getting older. I try, but it's hard. It's interesting because the area where I moved to when I left LA, it's a lot more of a retirement community. So for me, it's interesting in that now I'm around a lot of older people, and I'm kind of finding my way into becoming a part of this community. I don't, it's like for instance, there's a lot of artists up here where I live, but they're not comic artists. These are fine artists, painters, landscape, a lot of nature. It's very foresty and woods up here. There's a lot of landscape painters, a lot of still life painters, but they're extremely welcoming. So it's like I'm becoming part of or finding a new social group. It's just a social group that's sort of different from the group that I grew up in, was part of when I was younger. So it's interesting, but I say this all to say that people are welcoming and encouraging me to not be a hermit. So people want you to be part of their lives. It's a matter of, it's almost like letting people love you. It's not easy when you've had reasons to have your guard up, to be, to be defensive, to worry about people that are going to try and be manipulative or get over on you or bully you or whatever negative things. It is challenging to accept the idea that some people just want to get to know you and be around you. But, if you can find it in your heart to let folks in, it can be very rewarding. Like I said, it's a double-edged sword. There's, again, people out there that are going to be shady and crappy. That's always going to be true. So I'm not saying that doesn't exist. But like I said, I'm trying to lean into the world that I want to see as opposed to the world that is. All right, so what I'm doing now real quick is I just took the layers. I took originally the thumbnails, the cleaned up sketches were all on different layers. So I put them all on one layer, and I actually don't really need that perspective grid anymore. But I put them all on one layer and then lowered the opacity of that layer. And now I can go and actually begin doing some digital inking on top of this. And just so you know, we're at, about 45-ish minutes. We may go a little bit long, like a little bit over an hour, but I'm going to do a subscriber live stream after this for the patrons and people that are subscribed, the paid subscribers on Substack, and do a writing sprint because I wanted to get that in earlier. I wanted to get that in today. Gregor says, "Can you teach a class at a local art supply store or something?" Well, it's funny. I taught classes I gave a workshop at Morro Bay on drawing from the old masters, and I gave a class, and then I gave a free demo out there because I'm up in the Central Coast now, a little bit north of San Luis Obispo. I don't live in the LA area anymore. And anyway, I did taught a class there, and there's another place up here that's interested in having me possibly do some figure drawing teaching as well. So I am expanding out into doing some teaching. I'm just nowhere near you anymore, unfortunately. But I hope you're doing well. He says people are scum. Exceptions to that rule are the reasons life is worth living. Well, you're one of the exceptions to the rule. Let's see here. Mm-hmm. Kingsville Fitness says, make sure you're moving yourself around. Nature helps. Yes, my wife and I try to go for hikes at least once a day out in the woods out here. Plus, honestly, it's super foresty, just the street I live on. I try to get up and go for a walk like a couple of times a day, just hiking to the end of my street, and then doing a little short loop and back. Let's see here. Herman says, working on his health. He said he pinched a nerve in 2019. It's been a mess. He said seeing chiropractors over that and doing low impact squats and bike riding and resistance bands. That, yeah, pinched nerve. That sounds horrible in the neck. That's got to be real rough. See here, Chris is in the chat. I see Source Forge is in the chat, or Sorge Forge. I always butcher that. But good to see you guys. Let's see here. Sword Forge says, what resolution settings for your Procreate files? That is a great question. I'm just going to look because I kind of like set it up and then forgot about it. It is 600 DPI, drawing at a width of 7 inches by 10 inches with a pixel width of 4020 pixels by 6030 pixels. So basically, I'm drawing at a little bit bigger than standard comic book size page. Basically, a standard comic book page plus bleed at 600 DPI. Because basically that will allow me, if I need to expand this up for like an artist edition, it'll still look good at like 300 DPI, so like twice up. But then it'll be good for any size that I would probably need to print it. It's not ridiculous size, but it's big enough. Now, here's the other thing. Procreate, unlike I don't think Clip Studio Paint or Photoshop has this problem, but they limit Procreate on the iPad. It limits your layers by your resolution and pixel size. So I only have 10 layers. It says maximum number of layers. I have a maximum of 16 layers. And that's one of the reasons why right now I'm using 6 out of it and I have 10 layers left. That's one of the reasons why I took all of these little sketches, these thumbnails that were on separate layers and merged them. Is because what that does is that frees me up now to do a layer for ink. I'm probably still going to want to keep these gears on a separate layer just because it's something that I may want to refine. And even if it's something where I decide, I want to just make them in Blender or something, and I just want to get rid of the physical ones. If these were drawn into the ink character, then I have to erase him, like all the parts from him that I didn't draw. So it's easier to just have the figures separate and have this on a separate layer. But that still means I'm going to need a layer for inks, and then I'm going to need a layer for gray tones. Now, true, I have 10 layers left, and I'm only going to be using 2 more of them. But I always want to leave space for places where I'm like, oh, wait, I should have this character on a separate layer, or I wanted to make a couple of adjustments here. Or even with the gray tones, there may be something where I need to do a special effect that requires a couple of extra panels. So it gives me some options. It gives me some flexibilities. Let's see here. Let's see here. Scrolling back up. James says Morro Bay is beautiful. I'll probably be spending some time there with my friend in May. It is beautiful. Love it up here. Let's see here. Kingsville Fitness says, get this book called Stretching by Bob Anderson. There's various routines. You can even create your own. It says, I've been going over similar stretches for a year. Gregor as well says an exercise bike with a switch to an immersive open game world. Half an hour goes by quick. I never thought about getting a switch plus an exercise bike. That does sound like that'd be a good match. Kingsville Fitness says 11 by 7 uninteresting on 10. I don't understand what that means. Let's see here. Oh, Gregor says that when he's doing his Hogwarts, he's doing his Switch plus biking. He says Hogwarts Legacy. Kingsville Fitness says, I'm seeing 10-inch by 15 within layout, lesson number 1, Joe Kubert's book, penciling. Yeah, traditionally comic books are drawn on 11 by 17 tabloid Bristol board. And within the 11 by 17 is the entire paper. Within that is a frame that is 10 by 15, and that is usually the space in which the comic book panels are drawn. So if you have full bleed, like if you have the characters going all the way to the edge of the page, then you would have them going out to the 11 by 17. But generally, your comic panels and all of the action that takes place in the comics are contained within a 10 by 15 space. So yes, I am not going to disagree with Joe Kubert. I'll tell you that much. All right. What was I doing here? Oh, I guess starting the inks. What? No, I'm trying to decide how. This is one of the things where I've really tried to force myself to develop a. Damn it, that didn't do what I wanted it to do. I've forced myself to try and develop a lighter touch, and that can sometimes be a bit of a pain in the ass when let me just here we go. Drawing with a lighter touch can be a little bit of a pain in the ass when you're when you want to have some thicker, heavier lines. Mainly because I'm thinking I want this the planet Earth to stand out, to be kind of the most prominent thing in this shot. So one of the things that I like to do is I kind of decide early on what are the going to be the big prominent things. And once I do that, from there to just switch to a smaller brush. So I think I had said this before. I kind of wanted it to feel like the earth is sort of bubbling out of this gas in space. I'm sure there are comments in the chat, but I'm going to look in a second. I just want to get a little bit of this vibe started. Go down slightly in the brush size. One of the things that I do struggle with is trying to make it look like I'm not trying. Because I realize as I'm putting these lines in here, when I first made the rough sketch, the red sketch that's underneath, I really was not, paying much attention to it. I was just sort of laying in marks. And now that it looks like what I want it to feel like, now I'm trying to replicate that with a lot more fidelity to what came before. And that's sort of a double-edged trap because what came before was very just thrown off and organic and not overly fussy. And now trying to replicate that becomes a challenge. In other words, it's like trying to be too cool for school. I'm trying to make it look like I'm not trying hard. And I'm trying hard to do that. All right, let's see what's going on in the chats. See, Kings of Fitness has to bail to do some studies. Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out while you hung out. Herman says, "Hey Jeremy, can you change the line on that earth to dotted unless you want it bold like that? If the background has all blacks, I don't know. I could change it to a dotted line. For me, I'm viewing the line that's around the planet as a holding line. So I'm not trying to make it photorealistically, because I mean, realistically, there wouldn't be any line at all. It would all just be like I would have the space go all the way to the surface instead of like I would have the black of space go all the way to the surface if I was trying to be more realistic. Instead, I'm sort of treating it like cartoony, and it's more like it's a line to frame the planet and make it stand out. And also, I mean, it's very possible that I will get to the end of inking this whole page and come back and play with the line widths more later on. Or the line weights. Widths, weights, same difference. But let me scroll back up. Herman also said, in a digital world, you can also blow up the art to 11 by 17. He said, I drag my small thumbnails to a trace on top of another layer. Yeah, Chris called out this is the opening shot. Yeah, the thumbnails, when I first brought these, the layer that's underneath, so these rough pencils that I did, underneath that, there's another layer where my thumbnails. Now, when I brought these thumbnails in, each one of the thumbnails was probably, each one of these little pictures was probably like maybe this big when I brought it in, and I scaled them all up. So even the thumbnails, which were just drawn in standard, whatever the Procreate default screen size is, they still scaled up fairly reasonably. It's not to the scale where it's going to print well at 600 DPI, but it's scaled up enough that I could redraw cleaner drawings on top of that. And now I can go ahead and just draw the actual finished ones on top of that. So let's see here. So Swordforge says, Jeremy, does your layer limit make coloring difficult, or do you do your colors in another app outside of Procreate so you don't have to mess with the layer limit? Well, a couple of things. One, I do this in my books are black and white. So while the covers are color, I'm not particularly worried about having so many colors that it's going to really limit what I do. So from that standpoint, no, it's not a problem. But two, if I were coloring this, and I've had this with illustrations where I needed too many layers because I was, coloring, maybe I was doing 300 DPI, but I was working like 12 by 18 or 18 by 24. If that's the case, what I will do is I'll take the line art, the finish, like, because all of the other layers that I have here are just sort of support. They're sketch stuff. So if I needed to do, let's say I needed to do this in full color and I needed a lot of layers, I would maybe take this whole thing when I was done and I would export out a separate file that just had the inked line art. I would open that up in a separate Procreate file, and then I would have another 15 layers to color on. So if I were really, really concerned about it, then I probably would switch to a different app. That's the point where I would probably say, all right, I guess I need to look at Clip Studio Paint. I mean, I have Photoshop, and I could just color it on on my desktop or my laptop in Photoshop, but I prefer doing comic work on a tablet. It feels less like work and more like just, oh, it's fun, I'm drawing. And I want the comic creative process to feel as organic and fun as possible. Because it's like, shit, making comics is hard work. Why do it if you're not enjoying it, right? Now, I will tell you that even though I've gotten very comfortable drawing in front of people and drawing live, one of the challenges of doing something like inking while I'm here is that in talking and drawing at the same time, I'm not paying as much attention to line weight as I should. So you will probably see over time, like when I come back and I'm doing the gray tones, you'll see that I've probably come back and touched up some of these panels, re-inked them again, just made little changes to try and make it closer to what I see and feel. Because I can tell you already that the roughs that I did in red pencil underneath feel better than these digital inks. Right now, this panel so far does not feel like it's where it needs to be. So, ooh, Chris says he's got something wrong with his neck too. It must be something. You know what it is? I'll tell you right now. Let me bring myself back up on the screen. One of the reasons why I try to lower my desk while I work is I try to work as much upright as possible. If you can work where you're sitting like this instead of hunching over your drawing board, just sitting this much more forward, the weight of your skull, your big fat honking skull is going to pull down on your neck. Whenever possible, try to work with yourself completely as upright as possible. And, if, either have whatever you're working with, whether it's a tablet, either to have it propped up or resting on an easel or a drawing board or a stand so that it's more vertical like this. Or if you need to have it, at an angle, then place it lower. And instead of craning your head, just try to let your eyes look down. Like instead of turning your head down, just look down with your eyes. Because the act of doing this, particularly because as we draw, we lean in. So you'll be drawing and you'll do lean forward. That's horrible for your neck. And the ergonomics of drawing I feel that they become more and more vital the older you get. You can do a lot of dumb shit when you're young, when you're in your 20s. You do a lot of dumb shit with your body. But they form bad habits that catch up with you in your 30s and cripple you in your 40s and beyond. So if you can develop good ergonomic habits as early in life as possible and stick to them, it'll give you more creative longevity. All right, let's see here. And Soarforge says, great show today. Thank you. You're very, very welcome. I appreciate that. All right, let's see here. I'm now leaning forward, just like I told you guys not to, because I'm trying to read the chat. Amar says that they've announced that Procreate will be coming to the desktop for Apple. To be honest, I think that Procreate, what they really need to work on is bringing it to Android devices, because I know a lot of people that would really love to have it on Android. Herman says, gee, I found an old file when I was trying to do a DC Comic Art Challenge. He said, it's so bad. I remember trying to meet the deadline and found out I was late. And I'm like, this is trash. He says, I may eventually post it in the forum. I have not been able to find it, but I want to share with you guys at some point the very first version of Morningstar that I drew when I was in college. Because, I mean, it looks like a 20-year-old trying to draw a Western comic. That's what it is. Let's see here. Amar says, was Earth not Pangea at this time? Are you drawing? Says, was Earth not a Pangea at the time you're drawing Earth at? I don't know. It's mythology. I'm making shit up. Let's see here. Amar says, I'm going to invest in a standing desk. I say a cheap $98 to $130. So I'm not sitting all day because of my neck and back issues. So I can stand for a few hours in comparison. Yeah, I have a standing desk too that I'm not working at while I'm making comics, but I do have one for when I'm doing graphic design work. And I usually will stand for an hour, sit for an hour, and just try to alternate throughout the day. All right. Well, I think on that note, we're going to wrap it up here. Let's see here. So, like I said, next week, WonderCon in Anaheim. No live stream. If you're in the LA area, come by my table, say hi. I will post the Artist Alley information on the socials when I have a chance to look it up. But not going to have a live stream this next week because I'm going to be at WonderCon. I'll have copies of Morningstar. I'll have copies of Eye of the Gods, of a bunch of prints. And I'm probably going to maybe do some commissions, bring some supplies. I used to not like doing commissions at shows because I couldn't really focus and do my best work. But I'm going to try and do a few commissions there and bring some original art to sell. So hopefully I will see some of you guys there at that show. And also for today, I'm going to take a short break, and then I'm going to do a writing sprint live stream for subscribers. So I'll post that information a little bit later, and then if anybody wants to hop in, it's like we'll talk for a few minutes at the top of it. We'll write for 25 minutes. We'll take a break, talk for a little bit more, and then write a little bit more. So I want to get back into my my writing flow. But for all of you guys, for this one, we're going to call it here. And if you want to get on those subscriber live streams, you can head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. I'll take you to my Patreon page. And for as little as $2 a month, you can get in and become a part of the community. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free newsletter at substack.com/@Jeremy. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It's a standalone psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can pick up my most recent project, Morningstar. It's a retelling of Lucifer's Fall from Heaven as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains the conclusion, issues 5 through 8. Both have extensive back matter, thumbnails, page layouts, character designs, and more. I basically show you how I put the entire comic book together. And if you'd like to check out what's inside of them before you buy, go to the homepage of my YouTube channel, scroll down to book flip-throughs. There's a playlist where you can see what's inside the books before you pick them up. And you can also pick up my art book, Wound, The Art of Jeremy Burley, Volume 1. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Appreciate the time. For those of you that are going to be at the Patreon live stream, the Writer Sprint, I'll see you guys in a little bit. That's it for now. Go be creative.